Hey everyone, welcome to the Sackhoff Show. I am your host, Katee Sackhoff. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me. As usual, I just want to remind you guys to stick around after the hindsight of our guest, and also that you can send your comments and your questions to thesackhoffshow@gmail.com. And we go through a lot of those questions in the hindsight. My dog is driving me nuts. I am sorry. Vargas, stop it. Back to you. You guys. My guest today is somebody who I absolutely adore. The guest is Gustin. I met Grant when I played Amunet Black on The Flash, and he is just so much fun, and he's just such a wonderful person. If you don't know Grant, he did play Barry Allen on the Flash TV show, and he was in Glee, and he just finished a run on Broadway in Water for Elephants. He is phenomenally talented, and I really enjoyed getting to know him a little bit better. So come along with me, and I want you to get to know him a little bit better too. So I'm going to get out of your way because my dog is still driving me nuts. And here is my friend, Gustin. Hi.
Hi.
It's so nice to see you. How are you? When did you get home?
I'm not home. I'm still in New York.
Okay.
I've got 13 more shows. So I finishing this week.
Done.
My family's home. I went with them for like 3 days, and then I went back.
That's right.
Like a month later for my daughter's birthday, and now it's another like 2.5 weeks without seeing it. Has been pretty awful. I'm not used to not seeing them, so it's been pretty terrible.
Is this the longest you've been away?
Yeah, I shot a movie where we weren't together, but it was the whole thing was like 4 weeks, and I saw my wife at one point. So I guess it's like the second. I mean, my daughter was so much younger though. She's 3 now, and like I have to, every day is telling me she misses me and asks when I'm coming home, and so it's just like harder now. And my wife is 9 months pregnant, and I'm not there to help.
Yes, so. And you're not there to help. Yeah. It's really hard. The longest that I was gone was I did a movie in Budapest when our daughter was a year old. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard to be gone for 16 days. And it was only 16 days, but it was so hard. Everything that could possibly go wrong in my head was going through my head because I was trying to figure out how do you get from Budapest to Los Angeles in an emergency? Like I was like,
my bags are on the ground right here. Like I'm like 75% packed. I could also find out mid-show that she's gone into labor, and then I'll leave, mid-show, which production is very aware of, and my understudy is aware of.
I was like, is your understudy ready?
Yeah, well, I have missed. I mean, I got COVID, so I missed like a full week, and I was alone with my daughter for a week where my wife had gone home, and we were gonna have like babysitters that week, but she got a virus from her preschool, and I got it within like 24 hours, and the two of us were just like sick alone together. So twice I've missed like one full week, 2 different times when I've been really sick. So I've missed a handful of shows. So my understudies know that. Job.
It is really hard. I honestly thought that I had a strong immune system. Like I thought I was one of those people that like had a strong immune system. And then I had a child and realized that I was very good at avoiding sick children.
Yeah, maybe me too. I mean, it's like, also I know it's such a mental thing for me. And like when my daughter clearly brings home something from preschool, I am like, oh, I'm going to get that. And my wife is so not that way. Like she can be around any cold and not get sick. But like 10 years of Flash, like I don't ever remember being like, I'm sick. I'm sure I worked sick a few times before COVID, and that was like a thing. But I don't ever remember a sickness like stop, except for one time. I remember like a season 2 or 3, like going in sick, like throwing up in my trailer in the morning. We were shooting on this expensive location and I shot like the location in the morning and we were supposed to go back to the studio and that could obviously be replanned and they sent me home after the location. But
Yeah.
like since COVID, it's like our immune systems are after like masks for 2 years and washing our hands obsessively, like, and that all happened at the same time that I had a kid. Like, so yeah, it was just like set up for failure.
Yeah. So how is the play going?
It's been great. I mean, when Flash was winding down, well, even during Flash, I had a couple opportunities like between seasons to like step into a show and be a replacement for like a short period of time and like different longer running shows. And I was always really tempted, but the hiatuses were 2.5 months and it just didn't feel like first of all, like a long enough run. I would have done like 5 or 6 weeks max of performances. And I like needed to nap between seasons.
22 episodes is a really, really hard run.
Yeah. And especially those first like 5 years, like I pretty much worked every day, all day. But it's been like exactly what I needed. I knew I wanted to get on stage when it ended, just to kind of shock my system and make me uncomfortable. I knew it was gonna be hard because this is my background, and I'd done a Broadway tour before, but this was my Broadway debut, and it's definitely been even harder than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah. In what way?
Well, mostly the mental aspect of like I do a lot of singing. And just every day, like waking up and being like, can I sing it today? Like, just, you have to really take care of yourself. And it's, I have not like enjoyed New York. Like I'm just I was being dad, but then I was also just drinking lots of water and trying to go to sleep early and not having fun with anybody. And, but it's been what I needed as an actor, but it's been like stressful and exhausting. It's the double-edged sword of having a job where, now you have something to stress about. But it's been so much fun. And it's such a special group of people, which, you don't always get. There's like not one person that's like the bad egg. So it's just been a really positive experience.
What was it about this show? How did it come to you?
I have a friend that's in the company that I have known for like through my best friend. They were college roommates. And so we weren't like great friends, but like he's a New York Giants fan, I'm a New York Giants fan, and like we like that's been like something like during seasons we'll like keep in touch about, and like we just through our mutual friend have known each other for like 15 years. And he was in the company, and they did the show in Atlanta last year, which is pretty traditional for Broadway shows. They do it somewhere out of town a lot of times.
Oh, do they?
Before it comes to New York, yeah. And this was making the move to Broadway, and the actor that had played this role had done 2 other out-of-town productions that were of different shows that were also going to Broadway, and he had to pick which show he was going to do. Yeah, so he ended up picking a different show, and the role opened up, and it started with my friend asking me if I was interested, and I was, and then it was very standard. It was like my manager reached out to them about it. They're like, he's actually on our list to see. And
did you audition for it?
Yeah, I made a tape, and then I was on a short list of guys that had a callback. And it was like the week my daughter started preschool, and drop-offs were like a nightmare. And I was like, can I do the callback on Zoom? And they were like, we really need to see everybody in person. And
oh no,
because I really didn't want to. It was like they were like traumatic drop-offs, like for that first like week or so.
Because of the crying, or were you the one crying?
The first day was after the fact. Yeah, like I was pretty much taking her every morning, and the first day was great because she didn't know what she was in for, and then the second day she's like then on for like kind of a week or so. And she would have so much fun when she was in the door, but the walking through the threshold was like screaming like, Papa, no, Papa.
Oh my God.
And you just like feel like the worst. And so I was like, I'm not trying to fly to New York right now but I did. So I flew to New York and I did a callback, and And I like flew out that day because I was like, can you see me at 9 a.m. so I can like get home?
Yeah.
And I'm not one for singing in the morning too, but I was like, I need to just get this over with and get home. And I actually found out as I was boarding my flight to fly home that I got the job. They're like,
I love that.
by the 7 hours later, I found out I got it.
So you started in theater, correct? Or did you start in like specifically musical theater?
Yeah, I've actually never done a straight play. I
mean, neither have I. I look at you like you're crazy. Either have I.
No, but I should. It's weird because like I went to an arts high school. I was a theater major in college, and I've been now doing this professionally for like over 15 years, and like I've somehow never done a straight play.
Yeah. Well, you've been a little busy, Grant.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That was actually my goal. Like when I wanted to get on stage when Flash was over, I wanted to do a straight play because I knew the singing every day was going to stress me out.
Yeah.
I've never thought of myself as a singer.
Really?
Yeah, it was not something I was like born good at. I was like kind of a natural dancer, and I started as a tap dancer, and I was kind of good at all styles of dance, like coming up in like the musical theater world, and singing wasn't just something I was just naturally good at. And I worked really hard at it, but like at every stage, like in high school and college, like there was always like 4 or 5 guys around me in my class that I felt like were like much better singers than me. So I just never felt confident about it. And then, my first job was Glee, and like, again, I was like surrounded. I was like, yeah, I can sing, but I'm like around all these people that are like freaks. And
yeah,
like vocal freaks. And so I don't know, I've just never felt, and then I hadn't had a voice lesson from the time I left college until I got this job, which was like 14 years. And I was like, I need to like start like condition myself. So it's the most confident I've ever felt about singing because I've had to do the show 8 times a week, and I've had no choice but to be confident. And it's like a muscle, and I've really exercised it for the past 8 months.
Somebody asked me if I, like, as an actor, because I started in musical theater, and everyone was like, why didn't you go to New York? Why'd you move to California? And I was like, because I am not a triple threat. Like, I can act and I can sing. I cannot dance. It takes me so long to learn choreography. And I remember going to one audition with the choreography, and these women around me learned it so fast. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I literally can't do this. I mean, if you want to give me the part and then spend weeks teaching me the dance these women just learned in 30 seconds, I can do that, but I can't. I'm not going to book anything. I'm just not going to book. And so I moved to California instead.
Interesting. It's funny how all our brains are like wired different. Like, cause that's what I was good. Like, I wasn't like I couldn't kick my face or anything, but like I was good at all styles of dance, and I could learn choreography like that, which translated to fight choreography. Like, I never had fight choreography rehearsals ever, cause they would on set for Flash, just like, we would block a scene, and then they'd be like, this is what it is. And I would just get it. And then I would do it right there. But when it comes to learning a song, learning an accent, which I know you're really good at, like you have a good ear for stuff like that. Well, I mean, you seem to. Like,
I have fun with it.
Accents, singing, like impressions, like those are not my forte. But I'm the same, where it's like, I know if I bust my ass and I go away and you give me, a couple months or like a month, whatever, to like work on a character, like I'll be able to get it. But I can't listen. I can't just like even right now, I would not be able to even do like a British accent if you told me to. Like, I would need to like work on it.
I can do generic accents, and I can pretty much do most of like US accents by listening. But if I actually was hired to like do a very legitimate accent from a certain place, I'd have to get a dialect coach. I would just have to.
Yeah.
So when you got Glee, was what, because that was the thing. Everyone wanted Glee. It was like such a huge job to get. And did you know it was going to change your life?
No, well, it's funny. It didn't really because I had watched what happened to, I mean, it did, but like gradually, because I
Yeah.
watched what happened to Darren Chris the year before. I was just talking about this the other day where, I was touring with West Side Story at the time, the first national tour of West Side Story. And, got that job basically from the road. Like I'd made a tape and got a call back, and we happened to be in Costa Mesa, and I took a train to LA to have my callback, and I got it. And I had like 12 shows left on the tour, and they let me out a bit early to go shoot. At the time, it was just like one episode, maybe 2 episodes. And yeah, I did. I was like, this is gonna change I'm gonna blow up. Like I'm gonna be a series regular, or like I'm gonna, the same thing that happened to Darren's gonna happen to me. And it didn't.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. Like so, I shot my 2 episodes, and I basically relocated to LA for it. I mean, not basically. I moved to LA from the road where I had left college to do the tour, thinking I'd go to New York afterwards. So I didn't live anywhere at the time. So I basically moved to LA to guest star on a show and then start auditioning for other stuff because it was just 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And I think I ended up doing maybe one more that season. And it was just over the course of like 3 seasons, 3 or 4, I did 7 episodes. So it wasn't like I even was like heavy recurring. I basically was just a guest star that popped in and out, and the character made a lasting impression. So people kind of like associate me with the show, but like I didn't do a lot.
That's funny because I specifically remember you from the show, and in my mind, you were in a lot more.
Yeah, I was in 7. And I did like a longer stint on the final season of that reboot of 90210 while I was doing it, like, which no one knows I even did. Like I did 9 episodes of 90210. I did like, a CSI Miami episode, a Lifetime movie. I was doing a lot of other stuff because I was having a hard time like affording to stay in LA because I was getting paid top of show to do some Glee episodes every once in a while, and I didn't never know when they were coming.
Yeah.
So it changed my life in the sense that it got my foot in the door, and now I lived in LA, and I know eventually, 2 and 3 years later, when I was auditioning for Flash, it did help because they were, there wasn't a lot of tape on me, and they liked my audition. But when I was like in kind of final, right before the studio and network sessions, they were like looking at my stuff of me on Glee, and I remember them telling me like they could tell how much I genuinely loved what I was doing, and they wanted to see that in Barry Allen when he got his powers, like how exciting it was for him and to see this joy come through. So it did help eventually change my life because Flash was obviously really the thing that,
of course,
changed my life.
Of course. But it's one of those things where it's a, work begets work. And even just the fact that you did those episodes of Glee, like you said, it probably contributed to you getting the role of Flash because you'd been road tested, if you will. You know what I mean? Like you weren't super green at that point, which always helps. So when you obviously, when you booked The Flash, like you never thought you'd be there for 9 seasons. Yeah,
but also like something I've talked about too is like I think I was naive to the fact that it was gonna run a long time. Like it was like the contract we signed was 6 years, and I was like, we'll do 6 years. And I just remember Jesse being like, because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, and I didn't know that that's not like a thing that you should assume. But like Arrow was popular, and it was a spinoff of that. And like, no offense to the character of Arrow, but like we were about to make The Flash. Like it's a little bit more well known. And I also understood like that's going to be a little harder, and it was over the years to like keep it interesting and to tell a story about the fastest man alive. And that's a complicated power for TV, and it creates a lot of struggles with plot to keep it consistent and realistic and interesting. And we did struggle with that over the years. But like, I was like, if Arrow's popular, like we're going to be popular. And I just remember Jesse Martin being like, Bro, that's not how it works. Like, we're lucky if we like if we get renewed this year, we're lucky.
Yeah,
And even
exactly.
then, even hearing that from someone like Jesse that I trusted and respected, I was like, we're fine. Like,
I I love that because I was like the opposite. I had been on so many canceled television shows that by the time I got to
yeah,
Battlestar, everyone was like, "We're getting picked up," and I was like, "No,
yeah,
I'm so
that's not how it
sorry. You guys
works.
bought a
Yeah,
car? Oh, that's cute. No, don't buy
yeah,
cars. You're gonna need to save
yeah,
this money. Like, I don't know what
yeah,
you're doing because we'll never get picked up." I was always surprised every single year when we
yeah,
got picked up.
yeah.
Happy holidays. The holiday season is tough on skin. I know right now with the colder weather and the indoor stuffy heat and nonstop festivities, I know I'm partaking in some of that. It can lead to this dull, dehydrated complexion, which I know that I've been having. That's where today's sponsor, OneSkin, comes in. Their scientifically proven products are designed to support your skin at a cellular level so it looks and feels healthier and holiday ready. Normally during this time of year, my skin gets really dry. The only thing that I've done differently this year is started using OneSkin, and my skin does not look dry or dull or flaky at all. And I really, really love that. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It's time to get started with your new face, eye, and body routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with the code Sackhoff, Sackhoff, at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code Sackhoff, Sackhoff. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. How did you keep yourself motivated to do that many episodes for that long? Because I did 22 on Battlestar and it killed me. It was
Yeah.
hard. It is a hard run, and just trying to stay. And when that show, like when we finally like ended, I was so excited to be done. I
Yeah.
was so excited to be done because I was so excited to play a different character.
Mhm.
And were you ready to be done?
Yeah, I was ready, and I've talked about this publicly. I mean, I was ready to be done before we were done. I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, it was an interesting journey for me. Like, I was 23 when I shot the pilot. I'm 34 now. I was
Wow.
33 when it finished. So it was 10 years of my life, um, and as I just talked about, I was very naive when it started, and I didn't have a family. I didn't know my wife yet. We started dating season 2, and it was really, and I'm someone who's struggled with all kinds of different types of anxiety, like my whole life, as a lot of actors do,
Mm.
and insecurities and imposter syndrome. And I didn't want to audition for the show because I thought I had no chance at getting it, and then I got it. And
Mm.
I still to this day feel like I don't know why it was me that got to do it. Like, I
Hmm.
still have imposter syndrome about the fact
Yeah.
that I did it for 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, and that manifested itself in all kinds of ways. Along with like how hard the schedule was, and like and being insecure about like not feeling like I'm good a lot of the time. Like, I was stressed a lot those first few years and really tired, and was not always like the best version of myself. I feel like
Yeah.
for the first like, because it was a grind. I mean, it was a 9.5 month season, and I was basically alone in Canada and didn't. It was my whole life, so there was no
Yeah.
balance at
No.
all. It was honestly like, I'm so thankful it ran as long as it did, because it wasn't until like season, like maybe halfway through 5, season 6, that I like started to like recalibrate my stress and realize like I could, like, I'm sure I seemed like a dick sometimes because I was just like like stressed and like didn't know how to manage it. And
well, you're also carrying that show as much as that it was an ensemble and there were people around
yeah,
you.
yeah.
It was your show. Like that's
Yeah.
a lot of
And I
pressure
took
as
it
well.
seriously to a fault sometimes. I've actually seen clips now of Christopher Reeve was Superman. That franchise was like my thing as a kid. And I still love Superman to this day because of him. And he was a really serious actor before he did that. And I've seen, like, he rubbed people the wrong way making that because he was so serious about it. And everyone was like, bro, we're making Superman, like, relax. And like, I was kind of the same, like, and that was that way till the end too. Even after like, I realized like I could relax and have more fun, that like, I knew like what we were making was kind of silly and it could be really silly. And if I didn't take it seriously, then it wasn't going to work. So like I had to feel like I was doing Shakespeare or like it was, you know, I took it really seriously. And I think that helped me as an actor because like I could have like given up at times on myself and been like, you know, just phoned it in. But I don't know. I mean, it was just like the only thing I could control was my own work. So, I took it really seriously. And then like seasons like 5 or 6 on, I realized I could also like relax and have fun. And just because I'm taking the work serious doesn't mean that what we're doing is that serious. And it also doesn't mean that like, if somebody next to me doesn't have the exact same approach as me, like that's okay too. Like they can, you know, everybody can do this their own way. Like, so, and I just know now about myself, that's just who I am as an actor. Like, I don't really care what medium I'm going to work in or what type of project it is. Like, as long as I can have fun doing it, I'm able to like provide for my family in some type of way. And, and I take my work serious. Like, those are really my only like 3 main benchmarks these days, I feel like.
How do you manage, because you're right, as performers and as actors, I feel like the common thread between so many people in our industry are those things: the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, the anxiety, the you know, I don't want to say the depression, but I think that situational depression goes with our business as well, because there are such highs and such lows. So I think we all sort of have that stuff. How do you manage that? Have you figured out things that work for you?
Yeah, and sometimes I'm good about them and sometimes I'm not. Like I know like on a very basic level, like I during COVID, like for the first time since before Flash, like my wife's a physical therapist and she was always nudging me to be like, you gotta like find a way to exercise. Like, cause I didn't have time when I was like, or at least I felt like I didn't. And like, that's just such an easy thing for me that I know just makes me feel better.
Yeah.
If like, and cause I've been struggling with it again, doing Water for Elephants, cause I get home like I'm like in bed between midnight and 1:30 every night. And then I got to do the show sometimes twice the next day, but like every day. But I'm always also being a dad and just trying to sleep. So it's been something I've struggled with during this run too. And I know that it's like a vicious cycle where it's like, I just feel better when I do. So just like, I'm not incredibly consistent with meditating, but I know it helps me. So especially when I'm going through what feels like a phase of like anxious moments on a regular basis, I get good about it again. I'm in therapy. Like I mean, not always regularly either. Again, it's like sometimes I'm in a moment in my life where I know I want therapy like once a week. Sometimes I'm like, it's every, 2 months. But then just as an actor, what I remind myself, because again, same kind of when I got Glee, when Flash was ending, same as you felt, like I was excited because I was like, I need to play another character. And my manager and I talked, who I've been with since West Side Story, since before Glee, like, we have been excited for years because it was like, when it ends, like I'm now a proven entity that can do a long running show. And you know, and I feel like I grew as an actor doing it. And like, so we felt like I felt like, and he was, you know, pretty much gassing me up over the years. So like, there's going to be a lot of opportunities. And then COVID happened, which kind of changed the business. And then the strike happened, which like we're coming out of it and like the landscape is different. And it's not been what I thought it would be coming off of Flash. So kind of the same with Glee, where I was like, it's going to change my life. Like when Flash started, like I thought like I'll make movies in between seasons and I'm going to be like, I'm going to be an A-lister. And like, that's so not what my career is. And, and I struggled with that at times, like early. I think that's what also made me more stressed those first early years. And especially now having my daughter and another one on the way, it recalibrated me too, that like, I was thinking about on the train the other day going to the theater that like, if you had told me when I was 10 that by the time I was 34, like I would have played a superhero on TV for 10 years and I would be on Broadway. Like there's literally nothing more I could have asked for.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for my career. But then I also know like my family is just more important to me. So when I focus on those two things, like I try not to spin out too much. And then as far as just being told no, like I auditioning for things that 99.9% of the time don't go your way.
Yeah.
And there not being a lot of incoming calls. Like I have to remind myself, and it's not always easy to believe, but I do believe it, that, you know, the jobs that you're supposed to get, you're going to get, and the ones that aren't meant for you aren't going to be yours. Because there's all kinds just in the last like year or two that I thought I was really right for and I really wanted and I didn't get. There's got to be a reason. And even if it has nothing to do with my career, if it was like, well, I would have missed all of these moments that I got with my family if I had done that. So those are the things I just try to remind myself when it's not going the way I want it to go.
I think that is like a lesson. I mean, so much of what you're saying is literally what I'm going through right now as well. It's so normal in our industry, I think. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's normal for so many people. I think that one of the things that I've tried to learn as I've gotten older, and one of the things that's literally been thrust upon me, and you can't not learn the lesson, is that expectation literally is the killer of joy. Because every time I've gone into a situation expecting it to be one way, it's 100% never that. And so if you can't pivot and allow it to be something else, you miss out potentially on so many other beautiful moments in your life. And having a family really, really adjusted for me what actually mattered in life. Like it was like night and day. I don't know what it was like the first time you held your daughter, but it was like in that moment, I was like, oh, I still care about all of that.
Yeah.
But I realize how little it truly matters for like my entire purpose in life right now is just right here at the end of the day, you know? But that's how I felt. I mean, like,
yeah, me too. And on top of that, it's like we get to do something just because we love what we do and we're passionate about it doesn't mean that it has to be your first love or like the thing that's most important to you. Like it, I don't know. I mean, that's what I've realized in the last couple of years, because it always had been my first, it was like the most important thing in the world to me was my career, and that it's the most fun thing in my life and the thing I love doing the most, but you can't make it everything, because it's gonna be a lot of disappointment in our business. It's gonna be a lot of disappointment. I mean, even the A-listers, like it's hard to sustain that type of career for really more than, like, if you watch the trajectory of people for like more than a decade. So like even like the people that are at the very, very top, they go through this too. Like all of a sudden it's not the same that it used to be, or there's a lull. Yeah. And if like your whole self-worth is wrapped up in that, you're going to be depressed. You're going to be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband, is a writer. And when we met, he said that he had this like epiphany to him where he was like, you know, he went to school
Mm-hmm.
for theater and for writing. And he met me and he went, I honestly thought that when people in this industry got to a certain level, and granted, that level is very different for people. I look at someone, you know, like Kate Winslet and think it's completely different, you know, because you look at what's ahead of you, what's more successful than you. He said, I honestly thought that you got to your point and like all of the things that I have anxiety about stopped. Like when am I going to get a job? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? Oh my gosh, my health insurance is about to run out. Like all of these things. He said, I thought you got to a point in this industry where that just stopped being your worries. And he goes, I realized the exact same things I was worrying about, like when we first started out in this industry, are the exact same things that you're worried about. It doesn't change. It's the exact same shit.
It just reminded me of a thought I had when I was 23 during season 1. It might even be before season 1, like when I was shooting the pilot. And this is how I don't think I've ever said this out loud, not even publicly. I don't think I've ever said this out loud. I don't remember the last time I thought about the fact that I had this thought. And it was talk about how naive I was when I started shooting The Flash. I remember thinking, because I had always been a very emotionally available actor. Like, I'm a vulnerable person. I'm like a person that wears my heart on my sleeve. And as an actor, that generally can translate. And I remember thinking during season 1, how am I ever going to access that type of emotion again? Because now my life is going to be awesome. Like, I thought I was like done. Like when I got Flash, I was like, I'll never be able to be sad again. Like,
no more struggle.
No more struggle. Like how I'll never be able to access pain again because now my life is so ideal. Like
that's so
I don't
great.
think that thought lasted very long, mind you, but I just popped into my head that I remember thinking that when I was like 23. So how naive I was. But yeah, you realize quickly that it's like, and again, like I never grew up like I want to be famous, but it is, you know, you're lying to yourself if you're an actor in your teens and early 20s that like that's not something you want.
Of course.
You know? So, you know, when it happens, and then also it's like not what you expect it is, and then you don't get as much as you thought you were going to get, or like even what you do have like brings you stress. And so it's like this weird conundrum of like, you don't even want it, but you want more, but like you don't, you know, what you have makes you uncomfortable. And it's such a weird business.
How has being a father changed your acting ability, if at all? Like, are you able to tap into you talked about how you're a vulnerable person, as am I. I feel like now being a mother, it's like, oh, you want me to cry on cue?
Yeah.
Give me a second. Like, that's just like, it's in my back pocket now because there's so much.
It's sometimes, I don't know. It's like, it definitely, there's been moments where like, cause it's like your heart is outside your body, like they say, like, it's like, but I think doing the show 8 times a week, and there is a moment of like this character, it's set in the Great Depression and he loses both his parents in a car crash right before we meet him. And he hasn't even like talked about it out loud yet until like 20 minutes into the show. It's the first time probably he's ever even like said the words out loud that they've died. So there's this scene where like every night, like, you know, I probably should cry. But like, there's a lot of different ways to play that scene, obviously. And doing it 8 times a week, I've learned that like, no matter how emotionally available of an actor you are, and even if like you have things like a child that like, if you want to think about how much you love them or something terrible happening, like it's not that hard, but like, it's some nights like it, you know, every day is different. Some days like you're mad about something and it's not the type of mood that like you want to even cry. Like there is just a wall up. Like, and doing live theater is I had a guest last night, actually, a friend of mine that brought guests that was asking me, like, he does stand up, it sounds like. And he was like, what do you, just out of curiosity, because I'm on stage sometimes, like, what do you think about? Like, it's a long show and you're on stage the whole time. Like, what are you thinking about when you're on stage? And I was like, you know, it depends on the show. Like, and it's a lot like meditating, where if, you know, when you meditate, your mind will wander.
All
But
the
then you
time.
have to remind yourself to come back to your breath and just think about your breath. And like 20 seconds later, you'll realize you've wandered again. And then you come back to your breath. And for me, acting is the same, where like, your mind will wander. I don't care how good of an actor you are. Like if you're in a scene, like you might start thinking about some choice the person in front of you has made, or like the choice you made is weird, or like you're thinking about how good of an actor the person in front of you is, or how bad they are. And sometimes when you're on stage for 2.5 hours, like I'm thinking about what I'm gonna have for lunch in between shows. And then you realize, oh shit, my mind, I'm thinking about lunch. And same as meditating. Like you come back to my breath, or like I try not to think about anything. I'm just listening to whatever's happening in front of me and responding. So acting, to me, I've realized doing the show is really similar to meditating, where like the goal is to just listen and react, and you will get distracted, and then don't beat yourself up when that happens, because it's inevitable.
I was just working with Hugh Dancy, and he was so good. I play a defense attorney on Law and Order, and I was watching him do his monologue, and I was so overcome by just watching him perform. And just, I mean, he was so good that I forgot to say objection. And like, that's all I had to say. And like ruined a take. And he's so good. And I was like, I am so sorry. Like, I was like, you know, I mean, literally doing the one thing as actors are supposed to do, which is listen. And that's what I was doing. And then I daydreamed and I lost track of where I was. And he was just he was so good. What kind of thing are you looking for next? Are you looking to go back to another long running series?
I would. Yeah. Yeah, I totally would. I mean, like, again, like when it was wrapping up, I was like, I'm going to do movies, like, you know, whatever, or like some prestige TV, like I'll take that next step. And like, I'm definitely less concerned even now, like almost to a year, like what month is it? Like a year and a half removed from wrapping Flash. I'm even less concerned now than I was a year and a half ago. And the strike and like what it's like coming out of it has something to do with that, but also like my family growing and like I'm very passionate about my career, but as we've talked about, like it's just finding the balance. So I don't know, like there's, you know, things in the work, like there's things like I've pursued, like indies that, you know, stuff that I guess like not publicly attached to, but like attached to behind the scenes, that we're like trying to see if they'll actually come to fruition. There's always a show that I'm pursuing or a studio thing I'm pursuing, and most often like it doesn't go my way. I would definitely, I now know if I were to get a show that I wouldn't assume it would be long running. You know, it just changes as you get older, and the more you do it, and the more you hear no, and the more things don't go the way you'd like them to go. Even though I had done a bit, like I was really, really green when Flash started. So, but yeah, I would definitely, I think even as I was wrapping up Flash, I thought I wouldn't do a long running thing again, but like, how lucky would I be to get a second one? You know?
Yeah. It's true. What other things do you enjoy outside of acting? And like, obviously your family, but what do you do for fun?
I'm pretty boring. Like I'm not like very social. I mean, I have like small group of friends. Like, I mean, friends from actually tonight, there's a friend coming to the show that was like my first friend I met when I moved to LA. And
Mm.
I think Brandon McKnight, who was he on Flash when you worked on Flash? He played Chester.
I don't think so. I never met him.
No, yeah, I think it would have probably been right before his time. And like, because Carlos was still on the show, right?
Yes.
Playing Cisco, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so if a castmate from Flash is coming tonight with his girlfriend and a friend from LA, and I have friends in the city that I went to college and high school with, and I have like friends from each chapter of my life that I'm still friends with, but like I'm not an incredibly social person.
Mm.
Most of like the people I hang out with like are through my wife because she is very social.
Yeah.
I read a lot. Like I'm always reading a book, and I play PlayStation, and I watch movies and TV, and I exercise when I have time. I'm trying to like not sound too boring, but like that's pretty much like reading, video games, working out are pretty much like the three main things I do that have nothing to do with my family or my career.
Yeah. I listen, I get it. My parents are like, let's go out to dinner. Let's do this. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like, because we moved to Oregon. And so I live like 35 minutes away from my parents. And they're like, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And I'm like, I feel like you guys don't know me very well.
Yeah.
I don't like to leave my house that much. I love my husband, who is my best friend. I love my kids. I love watching TV. We love having dinner. And we love going for walks.
Don't you love F1?
I'm obsessed. I
feel like I see that on your Instagram, and I was like, I remember the first time I started seeing it, I was like, this feels surprising for some reason, but like it's so genuine. Because I'm like peripherally aware, like because of the Netflix series.
Yes.
It, like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I like kind of follow it because my brother watches it, and he's more into it than me. But like I like it too, but like not as much, I feel like, as you like it. It's like your sport, right? It's your main sport.
It is my sport. It is my thing. Like
that's another thing I like, by the way. I'm like a big sport, like baseball, basketball.
You said you're a Giants fan.
I'm a Giants fan since I was a teenager. And then basically I'm a big Dodgers fan. I'm a Clippers fan, which has been tough.
That's been sad. Forever.
Because we're always, I've been a fan since we've always been, since like 2012, like around the time I moved to LA. Yeah. And we've always been good, but we have never won a championship.
Well, you're also good, but you're not the Lakers.
Well, and there's that.
You know what I mean?
And I
like
could have been a Lakers
sort of
fan. Like I moved to LA and like I could have been a Lakers fan.
That's too easy though.
Yeah, I felt like if you're not born and raised in LA, if you move that, like you can't pick the Lakers. Like that just felt. Granted, I'm a Dodgers fan, but I wasn't gonna pick the Angels. I didn't I'm not a crazy person.
I love football too. Like we're Seahawks fans in this family, like super big Seahawks fans, love Portland Trailblazers, love watching basketball, like from when I was a little kid. But there is something about Formula One that I can't put my finger on. Like if I could raise two children, I won't let my son play football. Like I won't let him play football. But if he wants to be an F1 driver, I would be like, let's do this. Like, let's do this.
How tall is your husband? Because you're not short.
No. So, I'm shorter than people think. I'm actually only 5'5.5". But my husband is 6'3".
I don't think they're gonna be too tall.
No. Ocon, there are some really tall drivers.
Really?
There are a couple drivers that are over 6 feet. Yes.
All
yes. Right. It happens. They're not all like
I thought they were all like sub like 5'9", 5'8".
No. I mean, the average size is like on the 5'8", 5'10" sort of realm. But there are, I believe it's Ocon, who's actually, I think he's like 6'3". So it does happen. It does happen. So, it does happen. But if I could have a second career, just like being an announcer for F1, like if that could be my life, just traveling around in that circus with my family, that would be so fun. That'd be so fun. I just like, there's something about it.
I feel like if you stay passionate about it publicly and you're a public person, like I don't see why that couldn't be like a next chapter of your professional life. Why not? Like,
I feel like you're only allowed to be British. I feel like
now.
all of the announcers are British.
Well, that's just because it's always on Sky. But like, if it keeps growing, there's gonna be more of it, like out of Bristol, like on ESPN. You know, they'll have more like American broadcasters eventually.
It's true. We'll bastardize the shit out of it like we do everything else, and everything will be like Vegas, and it'll be fine. So, are you ready for a second child?
Yes. I feel like because this time, like, I know you can't prepare yourself, and there's no way of knowing what to expect, and you're not going to know what you're doing, but you just figure it out like you did the first time. Like, you'll just figure it out and adjust. And the idea of like, it actually doesn't seem real to me that like there's going to be a second person that I love the way I love my daughter. Like the idea, I'm like, it's actually crazy to me to think about. So, and we don't know what we're having. We waited both times. So there's that extra excitement too of like, is it a girl? Is it a boy? Like, we have 2 names ready to go. Technically we have 3 because there's like, for the boy, there's like, we haven't decided
multiples
quite yet. Yeah. But yeah, I can't wait.
Did you save everything?
Yeah. And we like, cause we didn't know the first time either. Like, and my wife is also not wouldn't put like a girl in pink or a boy in blue. Like, it's like, and we have some of those colors, but like, you know, everything that we have that my daughter wore, like a boy could wear, for the most part. So yeah, we have a lot of stuff still.
I had a lot of unisex stuff, and because I am very like, I'm very much a tomboy, but I also love dresses and like putting on makeup.
Yeah, my wife's the same way. Yeah,
you know,
she's an athlete, but she's a girl. Like,
is your wife's name is LA, right? Like, that's
it's a nickname she's had her whole life. Her name's Andrea, but like I've never once like called her Andrea. Like, I don't associate that name. No, it's like no one calls her like her. I don't know that anyone's ever called her Andrea, other than like a substitute teacher on the first day of school, or you know, like,
isn't that interesting?
Her name's been LA her whole life. I think she'll eventually legally change it. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that, if it's like what you've always been known as, I can imagine that like it would feel like almost like more of yourself to legally have that name. Our daughter though is like a fairy vomited on her.
Really?
At all times. Like, it is, if it isn't pink or purple and have tulle and and have sparkles with unicorns and mermaids and princesses all over it, she doesn't want it. It is like, she is so girly that I don't even know how that, and delicate.
Our daughter, like, she like dances on both sides of the line. You can, because I can tell she's gonna like, she will go into our closet and like put on, you know, my wife's high heels, and like she loves dresses, and like I can tell she's gonna love makeup, and but she's like also, but her personality is like all over the place. Like really tough. I feel like she's really into soccer right now, which my wife was a D1 soccer player. Like, and I could see like she'll probably be some type of athlete, but I don't know. And she loves the movie Cars, like, and like she wears Lightning McQueen Crocs that I have a matching pair of. Like, so she's,
oh my God, I love it.
She's kind of like an anomaly. Like, she's a lot of things.
Aw, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm excited. So you guys, you are literally going to have a second like in the next month.
Less, probably within 2 weeks. Like I have, I mean, less than a week and a half left in New York, unless I'm leaving in the middle of a show. I was the second baby. I was 2 weeks late. So I wouldn't wish that on my wife, but I am hoping for on time.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, I'll be home. I mean, there's a lot you can do as the partner during a pregnancy, as far as timing contractions and massages on the lower back, and like just getting things. And her mom is there, thankfully. She's been there because, you know, once we were in the 9th month and she was home, like we didn't want her to be alone, obviously.
Of course.
But there's just things that I've been through with her once before, that like I want to be able to be there, and
Yeah.
obviously I don't want to miss
Yeah.
the entrance of our child.
Yeah.
So
Somebody told us, because our son is 3 months old, and somebody said to it, not somebody, but this was there's this oh God, I wouldn't even know what you call him, a spiritual thinker. Like his name will come to me. He basically said that it is actually impossible to raise two children the same. You know, like parents
yeah,
are always like, we raised them the exact same. I don't know how this person, you know what? He said it's
yeah,
actually physically impossible. You are not the same person you were 3 years
right.
ago.
Yeah,
So
you're
therefore,
exactly,
the
yeah.
same person is not raising your child. It's a whole nother level of circumstances that come into play. Our son is being raised completely different than our daughter was, because we've done it before and we've gone through certain things. And, you know, he is literally, yeah, sometimes I forget we have him. And like, it's like,
No, yeah.
you know, he's a different child, and he is built differently than her. And you can tell the sensibilities are different. It's so that's like that's basically our thing, is we know that we can't possibly do it the same, but life is very, 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 very different with two children.
Yeah. And they're growing up with a sibling where it's like the first one didn't, you know, like
Yeah.
this is a completely different experience.
Yeah. So I just have two more questions, and then
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up. But what if someone's going to see, because I know that there's only like, you know, 2 weeks or a week and a half left of your show, but if somebody has gone and seen that, or if somebody is going to see it, what do you hope that they come away with?
God, it's like I'm so not. Art director of this show, Jessica Stone, and one of my castmates, Izzy McCalla, is like, there's certain actors and directors that are really good at talking about like the like encompassing idea of the show, and like with press too. I've always been this way as an actor, where it's like I'm so like listen and react type of actor, and I do my work obviously, but like I'm not a writer. So
Mm.
like, and something another talk about insecurities and imposter syndrome. Something I always have thought about with myself is like I struggle with socially and with confidence. It's like I've never felt smart. So like
Mm.
I don't feel anyway, this is not answering your question. So prefacing with I'm not good at answering these types of questions. But having said that, I think for me, from my perspective of what my journey is with the show, like it's about like when you lose everything in life, what type of person are does it are you left with? Like, can you pick up all the pieces and move forward? Do you give up? Like, are you able to focus on the positivity? Uh, do you fall into a dark hole? And I'm playing a second character now that, in the face of tragedy, decides to focus on joy and to move
Mm.
forward. So I know that's a big, element of our play. So, but it's also this beautiful, you're seeing my character also, Greg Edelman plays the older version of me, who's this amazing actor, 4-time Tony nominated actor. Um, and, towards the end of his life, reflecting on what the journey has been. And so the play is a memory play. And I think at the end of it, I can see out into the audience and what I'm feeling. It's like all the people that you meet on the journey of your life that had helped you get to certain points, that you loved the different struggles in your life. And so I think it's just you can feel in the audience people feeling connected with people that they have loved throughout their lives. So I don't know. I mean, I'm, again, not good at answering these types of questions, but
Oh,
I
I
hope
thought you
people leave.
beautifully answered that question.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, and also it's just really fun. There's like insane acrobatics in our show. So like, I don't think I've ever seen anything on Broadway like this. So, and I think the music is really inventive and unique. And, so it's just a good Broadway experience where I think you can see people just like literally grabbing their heads like in shock at things that are happening. And the music's really beautiful and unique, and it's a really strong cast where, musicals can sometimes have a style of acting that it's like, we're in a musical and we're not doing that. I feel like it's a play with music kind of. And it's a really beautiful story. So I feel like it's kind of got a lot of different things to offer.
I love that. The last thing I do is I just pull a random question out of a deck of cards, and that is the question. And there's one sitting up, so I'm just going to grab this one. And it's always random. What is in style right now that you can't stand?
The first thing that just came to mind, and I can't judge too hard because like there was a thing when I was these kids' age, but like every boy between the ages of like 14 and like 22 has this hair that's just like, you just,
like
I don't even know how to explain it. Yeah, but when I was their age, like we all had the like short crew cuts that was like flat and then spiked just in the front. And that's arguably worse. So I can't be too upset, but like it's just shocking to me that I'm like you're like, wow, you all have the exact same wig on. Like it's so bizarre.
I think there's a tutorial actually I saw on Instagram or TikTok of this boy teaching everyone how to do it. And you comb all your hair down, you put your hat on.
It's a hat
like your ball cap.
I wondered.
You put it on but backwards. So it's like right here. So it's pushing your hair down. And then you blow dry the bangs
that makes sense.
straight up.
But it's just so funny that like guys with curly hair, guys with straight hair, guys with like, it's like all kinds of different hair somehow are able to do the same exact style of hair. Having said that, like I like the trends. Like I'm like, I like the wide pants are back right now. I'm all about that. So like I'm a wide pants guy. I'm like, why was I wearing skinny jeans for so long? Like I was on planes in skinny jeans. Like what was I doing?
Like how comfortable were you?
Yeah. I like that. Like there's like purses for men are creeping in. Like it's just practical. Like
it is just practical to have a merce across your
pretty much everywhere I've gone in New York now, it's not really like I have like one of the just, little crossbody bag. Like I've got a tote bag. Like it's like, what was I doing with my phone and wallet and headphones and keys and like any extra crap a book? Like I can have a book in my tote. Like, I don't know. Like I don't want all that in my pockets.
100% agree with you that I don't know why men. It's why I feel like sometimes I see men wearing jackets when they don't need a jacket because they have pockets.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yes, 100. That is 100% true. So yeah, I'm definitely on with the purse trend. And I'm also like, we don't need to call it a merce. It's okay. It's not going to hurt our mask to call it a purse. Yeah.
Okay.
So like with my daughter, like I'm like, do you know where Papa's purse is? I want her to know it's okay for Papa to have a purse. Like it's a bag. It's not hurting my masculinity is not fragile enough to have to put an M at the beginning of the word.
Bless you. Bless you. Yeah. All right. Good. Thank you for sitting down with me and taking the time. I know your schedule is so busy right now. And I mean, you've got so much coming up, but so much like life-changing, beautiful moments. So thank you for fitting this in.
Of course. Yeah, it was fun to talk to you.
Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome to the Hindsight. Thank you for sticking around. I am here with my producer, Jeph, who's chugging Red Bull. So we'll see what happens for today's episode.
Not sponsored.
Not a sponsor, as I'm also drinking Diet Coke. Everything in moderation, folks.
Yes.
Jeph, we're both tired today. Why'd you wake up at 5 a.m.?
We've got some shoots here at our studio and I've I was up early yesterday because we did our live premiere with our premiere group there. That is becoming kind of like a little family for us every Tuesday morning.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. And I literally said to Robin, he was like, well, no one really expects you to do it every week. And I went, well, I wake up at 5 a.m. with my son anyway.
Yeah.
So I might as well do it with Granger. So Granger and I did the entire live chat yesterday morning.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you are already up. I force myself to wake up to do it.
I know, you poor thing. You poor thing.
Well, it's
this
fine.
whole show has just forced you to do things you don't want to do, Jeph.
No, that's not true. It just
No?
I'm happy to do them. It's just that I'm already tired all the time. So this is just me actually enjoying myself, surprisingly.
You enjoying yourself. I love that. I enjoyed, speaking of I enjoyed the talk with Grant.
Yeah, he's I never watched The Flash or Glee, but he seems like a lovely fella, you know.
Yeah.
He's a very hardworking guy.
He is.
I had actually forgotten that he was on Glee, because Glee is that show that, like, when it was on, I feel like everybody was talking about Glee. Glee was like the hottest show in the world. And I actually had to look it up because I'd forgotten that Glee was a Ryan Murphy thing.
Yeah.
Because Ryan Murphy is now so associated with, you know, American Crime Story, American Horror Story, all that kind of stuff. And it's just so funny that he started with Glee, the most happy-go-lucky show.
Well, he actually started with Nip Tuck.
Oh, really?
Because I worked with Ryan Murphy on Nip Tuck, and he is not a fan of me.
Why not?
You know, I was 27 years old. I was during Battlestar. I had agreed to, or signed up to do 4 episodes playing a character named Teddy. And it was pitched to me in one way. And what it turned into, I wasn't comfortable with. I didn't enjoy having tons and tons of sex scenes.
Right.
I just, at that point in my life, I wasn't comfortable with it. I, you know, lovely gentleman, but I had a scene where I was supposed to be on top of a gentleman that was my father's age for a scene, and they wanted me to be pretty naked, and I was really insecure about it. So I ended up doing the scene in like a little dress and like hiking the dress up, but like crying in my trailer and like not wanting to do it. I was just uncomfortable, you know? I mean, I knew what the show was. I just probably shouldn't have done it. It was a great show. I enjoyed watching it, but I'd never thought of myself having to do all of that stuff. Now I'm like, whatever. But like at the time,
sure,
you know, I was really uncomfortable. So they ended the 4 episodes on me like a cliffhanger of my character, and I didn't have a contract to go back for any more episodes. And Ryan was not happy.
He wasn't happy that you were uncomfortable with it?
He was not happy that I wouldn't go back.
Oh, I see.
I wouldn't go back to do more episodes. And it, you know, I might have handled it inappropriately. I don't know how I handled it. I think I handled it through my manager as a proxy, and I didn't want to get involved in it because I was intimidated and you know, for whatever reason, it was just not a great working environment. And so he does not like me at all.
Well, I was going to ask if you had ever done any of the American Horror Story franchise, but I guess I know the answer to that now.
And, you know, it's too bad because I actually think that like his shows are really, really phenomenal, and he's very good at what he does. I just think that, you know, unfortunate circumstances and it just didn't work out. And no, he's not a Sackhoff fan. Sadly. But anyway, yeah, so Glee was a Ryan Murphy show, but every time someone brings up Ryan Murphy, I'm like, well, I'm not going to that universe.
Right.
So, yeah. But Glee was wonderful. I watched it when it was on, and I didn't really know many of the kids. You know, I didn't really associate with many of the kids. That show blew up really fast. Yeah. You know, and it made a lot of people real famous real quick. And it was a crazy run for those guys. I think that Grant has grown up so much, like just in The Flash, you know, like he was so young and now he's a dad. He's got 2 kids and you know, your priorities shift a little bit when you have children and you're in like a really great place and he is, and it's evident, you know.
I wonder, because we recorded this a little while ago, and I wonder do you know if his wife gave birth? I would assume she would by now.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She did. And I need to, I don't know what they had, actually. I should look at that. I don't know, but no, she has. And I kind of want to reach out to him and be like, so how are you? Because I know that two kids was like a tornado through my life.
Right.
You no longer, it's a lot. Like it's like we talked about with Rebecca Mader, it's like 3 times as hard.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's exponential. It's not just doubling. It's, quadrupling the amount. Yeah.
Quadrupling.
One thing I found, I mean, it's not necessarily from the interview, but I was just thinking about this while listening, and this kind of just connects to you and just your experience with bo-katan. Like, the Flash as a character has kind of gone through some interesting changes over the last handful of years when it comes to the DCU and the consolidation of everything. And we know there's a film version of the Flash and there was a television version of the Flash. And I don't know if they've confirmed it now, but it seems like they're just kind of wiping the slate clean. I know they had like another Flash movie come out, or maybe we don't really know what's going on with the Flash. I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know eventually what's going on. But it's just interesting to think about that, because like we've talked a couple of times about your characters and the idea of recasting them and stuff. And I don't think Grant has ever probably been under any illusion that he is the Flash. So I don't really have much to say, but what do you think of that?
Well, I find it very interesting because I think it's a similar thing that Bitsy was talking about in her interview, and I don't think that is aired yet, or maybe it has, but we talked a little bit about that when you've got 2 Supermans, one TV, one film, I think that in those worlds, at least in the DC Marvel world, they have always really kept them separate when the CW is concerned. But when it's like, Disney, it's the same person. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because those properties were pre-existing, but then again, like, Superman was already on the big screen when they put him on the small screen. I don't know. I don't know what it is that keeps that separate, but they've always seemingly done it.
My guess, and I don't know for sure, and my speculation is that I think Disney has done a better job managing the franchises versus Warner Brothers with their DC properties. I think that's sort of a known factor in the world. And I know there are lots of people who are fans of the DC movie universe that is now going away. And we see some comments here and there. We saw some on the Bitsy episode where people aren't happy with the James Gunn direction of things. But I would say that's probably outliers. I think most people are excited about what James Gunn is bringing to the DCU. And I think that it all comes down to just that whole property wasn't managed very well in comparison to Marvel and Star Wars. So maybe that'll change going forward.
I don't know. I also think that tonally they're different. I think that the CW is a different tone than the film versions of those properties. And also, I think that there's probably I know that there's much larger budgets at Disney than there are at CW. And I also know that like CW likes to do more episodes. Disney does those nice little contained eight episode things that are easier to sort of entice somebody to come do. Whereas 22 episodes a season, we've talked about this a little bit on the show, that's a massive life commitment. That's 9.5 to 10 months a year. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah. I think they are one of the only people that are really, outside of like sitcoms, CW is one of the only places that are still doing that kind of classic television model where you get the 22, 24 episode thing. And they're shooting them fast too. So if you think about it, we've talked about this as well, that like Mandalorian, and I would imagine these Marvel shows as well that are on Disney, they're not 8 episode days. We shoot
an episode of Mandalorian for many, 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 many days, much longer than you would more typically like a big budget film would shoot. Whereas CW still does 7 to 8 episode days. Bitsy said as much when David, her husband, directed the episode. He had to do it in 7. I mean, I can't even imagine them doing an episode of Mandalorian in 7 days. It just wouldn't look the same. And so I think that those are a couple of the reasons, and quite possibly the reason why the actors are not the same.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that the Star Wars property and even the Marvel property, you're just making like an 8-part movie.
Yes.
You're not making a TV show.
No, 100%, 100%. And so I think that's why, but I mean, it's, it does suck a little bit, like, I mean, I don't know what they think, but it's, if I was one of them, I'd be like, dang it, that would be really fun to play this character that I've played for this many years, especially when there's multiverses and this and that, excuse me, I just burped a little bit. Diet Coke. Especially when there's multiverses, and they could have just done like a cute little glimpse of, Grant's character run by or something, what I mean? It just, but
yeah, they're already going down that road. This thought just occurred to me, and this is just my pure curiosity, but speaking of television and how it's shot, so for Battlestar, I mean, those were longer seasons, but the thing that's interesting about Battlestar is that the locations, because I know from stuff that I've done, locations tend to be what dictate how many days you need to shoot, because if you have to move locations, it causes so much more time and everything. So if you can shoot as much stuff, that's why like sitcoms and stuff like that tend to be, you have 2 or 3 locations that you just shoot out and everything like that. And Battlestar was kind of on the ship for a lot of it.
It was. But here, I'm going to throw a wrench at that, though, because yes, you're right. Location moving an entire company, moving all those trucks, moving everything. That is a lot of work. It is hard to do it to do an entire move. It most typically takes an hour to 2 hours, if not longer. It's a lot to add to your day. And we call those full company moves. What that means is the entire company is picking up and moving to a different location. It does, but you still have to shoot within those 8 days. So on a show like Battlestar Galactica, they would just cancel that location. If it didn't fit in the shooting schedule, they would cancel it. Now, let's take Longmire. Longmire was shot on location, mostly on location. A lot of set days, but they were mostly location days. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, we had a phenomenal crew. It was a small crew. There was no waste. And our first AD, Brian Fall, was probably the best first AD I've ever worked with in my entire life. We did 4 full company moves in 1 day, and we still finished in 12 hours.
Shit.
That takes organization.
Yeah.
At least I think I do. Somebody correct me. Somebody from the cast or the crew correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember we moved so much one day.
Wow.
And we finished, but it takes perfect coordination. It takes every single person doing their job the way they're supposed to do it. It takes every single cast member being memorized, so you know exactly how long you're going to shoot. And Brian Fall, who was only one of the first ADs on that show, he had it down to a page an hour.
Wow.
We can shoot a page an hour. If we're doing a 12-hour day with lunch, with hair and makeup, with a move, we can shoot 9 pages a day.
Wow.
On a good day, on an average day, 6.5 to 8.
Were you shooting locations, interiors on location for that?
Yeah. So interiors and exteriors. But the organization by that man was something. And not only was he organized, Jeph, I could still go to him ahead of time if I had the time with a scheduling conflict and say, look, I know you don't have to do this, but if you could get me out for these 2 days, that would be amazing. Can you try? And he'd go, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my best.
I'm going to
do my best. And he always did it.
That's
incredible. Always did it.
That's moving mountains.
Moving daily.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So it can be done.
Yeah.
It's just not typical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking of, since we're in the weeds on technical terms and stuff, you talk a lot in this episode about shows being picked up and shows being renewed. I thought it might be worthwhile for you to explain a little bit just your experience with that and just generally what that process is. I don't know if people understand like what shooting a pilot is and a show getting picked up, and then how at the end of every season there's sort of a gamble if shows are going to get picked up or not.
Yeah. So basically, we've talked about this a lot. Like there used to be a thing called a pilot season where a studio or a network would do a certain amount of pilots. They would basically order one episode of a number of shows. It could be like 50. And they would order one episode.
Yeah.
But everybody would do contracts as if it was going to go for 7 years. Those contracts are to protect the network and the studio. So anyway, they would do all of that. And then you would wait for them to decide if your show was picked up. If your show was picked up, they would say, we're going to pick it up for 13 or we're going to pick it up for 22.
This gets into
things like that.
The holding thing we were talking about.
And that holding thing. Yeah. Picked up means you win. We chose you. Yay. That's picked up. Now, the interesting thing is just because a show gets picked up, it doesn't mean you're picked up. So every single year, when a show gets renewed or picked up for another season, you personally have to wait for the phone call that says, we have also just exercised your contract as well.
Right.
And because the contract is, and I say this all the time, yes, it is in place to help and protect actors, but the studio can cancel your contract at any time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is...
You can't cancel your contract at any time,
yeah.
But they can. Yeah.
It's not only maddening for you, but I always wonder, like, what is that like for the writers? Because it's because so much of a show sometimes is dictated, not all of it, but so many decisions have been made on shows before where there's like a contractual issue with an actor and suddenly that actor now has to be written out. I mean, with your Ryan Murphy example earlier, like because you didn't have that contract and you chose not to go back to the show, presumably they had to come up with a reason or just leave that thread hanging.
They replaced me with Rose McGowan.
There you go.
They didn't even acknowledge it. They just replaced me.
Rose McGowan comes in and replaces a lot of people on shows.
Yeah, there you go.
Who did she replace on Charmed? She replaced somebody on Charmed.
Shannon Doherty.
Shannon Doherty, yeah, that's right.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
So it does a lot of times, affect the writer's room, but the writers, should go to the powers that be and be like, hey, do we have this person? Are we going to get this person? What are your thoughts? Back to Grant, we would get phone calls from CW or from the producers on the show and be like, so is Katee available here? We don't want to write her Amunette if she's not available. And then we would say yes or no, and then they would write it.
You've spoken also previously about your role on The Flash and how you gave some boundaries that you wanted to be respected, and that might have probably affected the how the character was utilized, you think?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you give guardrails to what your availability is, what you're willing to do, of course it makes it more difficult for someone to want to hire you.
Right.
But for me, learning to say no and learning to put those guardrails up as a professional and as a person has saved me a lot of animosity.
Yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean?
It's definitely good to do that so that you don't just put yourself in a bad mood, I guess.
It is. That show was hard. Those, and I say kids, I shouldn't say kids. They're my husband's age. Those actors worked long hours.
Yeah.
Long seasons, long years.
Yeah.
They were all grateful, but it's hard sometimes when you're in something to remember how lucky you are,
Oh, yeah.
And this happens on every show. It happens with me. Like you forget, oh, right, there are people not working right now in our industry.
Yeah.
Like you're just lucky to have a job. It's hard to sort of have that self-awareness when you're in it.
I'd say that's true for a lot of jobs, though, too. Like, I mean, everybody's job, eventually you get to the point where you're like, you sort of every job has its frustrations. You know, I'm not going to say that everybody feels lucky to have every job that they have, but like I've certainly felt that in the fact that I've made a career out of working in the entertainment industry in a way, and there are certainly lots of frustrations with it, and you sometimes have to, if you find yourself complaining to the wrong type of person, you know, you get that pushback of like, oh, well, poor you get to work with famous people on doing these things, and you're like, oh yeah, sorry.
We talk about this a lot in my girlfriend group.
Yeah,
you need to know your audience. Know your audience, you know, like you know, don't talk about how much your job sucks with someone who just lost their job.
Right,
you know what I mean? Things like that. You know, and that's with everything. That goes with everything.
Yeah.
You know,
it kind of reminds me, well, to close out this before we move on, I think, which I think we should. One of the things that Grant said that I thought was really funny, you guys were talking about like this perception of once you get a certain job, you feel like your life is going to change in a way. And like the fact that a lot of people don't really, I think you mentioned Robin thought that like, you know, when he met you, your life in your position, you were in, all your worries and stresses were going to go away. And Grant went on to say, yeah, he thought like when he got the Flash, he was talking about like being an actor, and he was like, how am I going to access that, like that strife and that sadness? And I'm never going to be sad again now that I got this job. And how hilarious it was to think that at 25, you know?
And then he was sad the next day.
Yeah.
You're
so
like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly all about perspective.
Of course it is. Of course it is. The comments, yeah. So at Thud5423 says, I've heard that Heir to the Empire is going to be a Star Wars movie. What are the chances that Dave Filoni is going to write bo-katan into the script? Dude, I don't know.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if I just like knew everything and like just let it go?
Well, you know, I'm still not convinced you don't, but you're just a very good actor.
Yeah. At Bart J. Boys says, is this woman the pilot from Battlestar Galactica?
That's on the Frakes episode, which brought in a lot of new listeners for us.
It did.
I thought that was funny.
I am one of the women pilots from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yes.
But yes.
Sir.
Welcome. Yes, sir.
Yes, Bart.
Yes, sir. I actually saw that comment, and I promised you guys, remember? I promised I wasn't going to respond to nasty comments.
Yeah.
So I don't anymore.
Yeah.
Not that was nasty, but
it wasn't nasty. And I put that on this list. That's my fault. But I thought it made me laugh out loud because
it made me laugh out loud too. I was like, oh. At Mr. Jungle Bear 1 says, why is it taking so long for the Mandalorian series? I might be dead before I get to see the next season the way Disney is going. I mean, me too.
I think there's just some confusion out there in general. Like, as far as I know, there is no more Mandalorian series. Like, they're done. As far as I know, as far as has been put out there, I don't know what you know, Katee, but The Mandalorian is done and there's a movie coming out, is what we know. We do know about the movie. You don't have to lie about that. We know about the movie.
Yeah.
We know about the movie. We don't know who's in it, what's going on in it.
Sigourney Weaver's in it.
We know the Mandalorian and Grogu are in it, but we don't know what's going on. But as far as the TV show goes, unless I'm just really, really dropping my cred here, I don't know that there's going to be another Mandalorian branded series.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So I put that on there because I just wanted to clarify to people that
no one knows.
Yeah. They haven't announced that there's going to be another series. And in fact, I think they have announced actually that it's done and they're just doing a movie.
I have no idea. I just out of the corner of my eye just saw our nanny from a seated position have to pick up our son, and she visibly was in pain. Gonna let you guys know that. Let's get into the sack.
We're going to the mail sack. Why are we calling it mail sack?
You know what I'm going to do? If we do like a special episode ever, I'm just going to make a montage of all your dances and put it up there.
We should.
Because we never show the dances.
I walked into the kitchen today and Robin was playing the new song from...
Oh, and Nicholas said he's booked his tickets and he's coming to see you in Germany.
I love it. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Gosh, Nicholas, I'm so excited. I hope he's not disappointed in like how little time, because like cons there's so little time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make time for Nicholas. I try to make time for everyone. But I hope he's not disappointed.
I'm sure he won't be.
Yeah. Okay. So Mark says, you had asked if the reason why BSG was so popular with the military community. I can say from my perspective as a 23-year-old retired veteran and Purple Heart recipient that I resonated with the show for two reasons. First and foremost, I am a nerd and huge sci-fi fan. There are a lot of nerds within the military. Movies are an important part of military life, allows us to forget on the mortality of our occupation for brief periods of time. I feel as though BSG did assist me in processing some of the feelings and emotions I dealt with. And if for just an hour at a time allowed me the ability to not think about being in a combat zone. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I can imagine. I agree. I completely understand how that would make sense. You know, like if you are in a combat zone, you know, it would be almost strange to watch something so fully removed from it, but something that's kind of similar to what you're going through, but fictional, but also, I mean, it makes complete sense. It
stuck out to me about the idea of processing feelings and emotions through the show, which is, especially in the military where, I mean, I'm not a military person. I know the military can be a lot more open with that stuff nowadays, but still, the military is not known for its touchy-feely nature. And I think having a show that is very analogous to what somebody is going through, that having the outlet to process an emotion is invaluable, I think. And, you know, that's why I pulled this email, because I just thought it was an interesting perspective.
I have heard that a lot, though, from people when they talk about Battlestar Galactica veterans and what it meant to them, and that a lot of them saw themselves in the show. And I think that is you know, one of the things that why it was so well done was that, you know, not only did it show the trauma and the pain and the loss and the fear and all of these things that we associate with combat, but it also showed the joy and the laughter and the camaraderie and the love and all of these other things that are, you know, that go hand in hand with the latter, and you know, and I think that's why at times the tragedy is that much more tragic, and the joy and the love is that much more powerful as well, because, you know, they allow you to appreciate the flip side of it.
And Battlestar is so much about keeping hope alive in a very hopeless situation, and I can see how a lot of people could feel like that in that kind of context, and that show just harps on that over and over and over again. And it's meaningful, I imagine, to a lot of people. And that, I mean, it's meaningful to people who aren't in those combat situations. So
for sure. Thank you for your service, by the way, Mark. Justin says, I wanted to reach out and genuinely thank you for taking the time from your family and busy life to attend the Cincinnati Comic-Con this past weekend. It meant so much to me and many others. Our photo op together is truly one of my favorite photos I have taken at a con. I was dressed as Mando, and I asked you to hold the darksaber that I brought with me. Not only were you very gracious and engaging at your booth, but you even perfectly fixed your autograph on my figure when my fingered
Fat
glove,
finger.
when my fat fingered gloves slightly smudged it, it is now a fantastic addition to my growing collection. While in Cincy, did you do anything fun in the after hours of the con? Justin, it was so nice to meet you. I remember this. It's so funny when people come up to the table and I always remind them that the paint pens, which is what I use to sign the plastic on an action figure, that they stay wet. It's paint. So, I always say, I just want to remind you, it's paint. It's going to stay. Give it a good 5 to 10 minutes before you put it away. And inevitably, a dozen times during a convention, someone walks away and immediately touches it and goes, and their face, they just turn. And I always go, it's okay. I can fix it.
Yeah.
And I have a bunch of tools in my kit to literally fix it.
Wow.
There was one person in Cincinnati, though, where they asked me to write a quote, but they were talking to me at the same time, and it was on a poster that you can't fix.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote, it was something that said Mandalore. Oh, he wanted Mandalore will always survive. Sorry, guys, the quotes, I'm forgetting the quote right now. And instead I wrote Mandalorians because he was talking to me, and I always write Mandalorians are stronger together. I always write it because it's my favorite thing. And I wrote Mandalorians, and I went, and I looked up at him and like, oh, I can't
fix this.
I can't fix that.
No.
I'm so sorry. Do you want a different quote? And then I'm Googling quotes that were close to the quote he wanted with Mandalorians instead of Mandalore. And I was like, oh God. And he was like, it's okay. Just write it. And I was like, okay, I'm so sorry. So I wrote it, signed it. And then at the bottom, I put another quote, and it actually looked really cool. So, but he was super understanding.
Justin included a photo of you and him.
We
can show.
I love the cosplay. It's so good. And I never know, how to hold the darksaber. It's so funny because I always end up holding it like a baseball bat. And I know that it's not a baseball bat. Like I did a lot of the fights, guys. I know it's not a baseball bat. But at the same time, the most natural thing for me is to hold a baseball bat or a golf club or something else, not a darksaber, You
don't look like you're holding it wrong. I mean, how else would you hold a lightsaber?
I don't know. Cooler.
Yeah. I mean, when you used it on set, though, what was it? Just did it look like that and it would glow, or was it just a light stick?
So a lot of times it was just the hilt for the most part. And when it was actually put together, it was multiple different things. Like sometimes it was just a stick on the end of it. Sometimes it was like, a light, like fixed with glow. It was just a, when it was rigged to actually shine, it was much heavier.
Right.
Yeah.
Where can people email us?
Right. So you guys, send us your comments and your questions to thesackoffshow@gmail.com. We read them all and really appreciate the interaction, you guys. It means a lot that you send us your comments and your pictures, and we just love to look at all of them, especially Jeph. He really loves to go through the emails. I do enjoy them, and we get a lot of really nice emails, and I kind of feel bad that we can't include them all, but a lot of them are just very, very nice things that people say, and I would feel like we would be jerking an entire episode.
Yeah, it was like jerking ourselves off if we just read all the nice comments people send to us.
That's
so
what I
if
do
I
when I go to a comic book store.
Sorry,
not
what?
jack myself.
I'm
off.
sorry, what?
What I meant was like if I need like a ego boost, I go to a.
Okay. Clarify. Let's just end it.
We'll just end there. On that note, you guys, this has been fun, and we will see you next Tuesday. And that's what's up.